With regard to set subject competitions, it doesn't really matter how good our images are. They're not going to do very well if they don't fully meet the set subject. Now, I do reasonably well in these competitions, but I wouldn't claim to be the font of all knowledge, and the image on screen is a good example, because I submitted that to a competition on the set subject of low light, and it scored no points at all because it was judged as not meeting the subject. But these things happen from time to time, and we just have to agree to disagree and move on. So, to radically improve our chances in a set subject competition, all we need to do is to get the subject right. And I don't mean maybe the image fits the set subject, or perhaps it's close enough, let's give it a try, or let's hope for a kind judge this month. There should be no doubt with our entry. We at least should be quite confident that what we're putting into the competition meets that set subject. Yes, we know we're going to get it wrong on occasions, but most of the time we won't. Many of the subjects that are chosen are pretty easy to find images for. But sometimes the subject can be a little bit tricky. If in doubt, just Google the subject for some ideas. Just use the words photography and circles, for example, and that's a subject which is coming up later in this year for our own club, and you'll find lots of ideas will pop up. There's nothing wrong in doing that. We all get ideas from one another. That's why we join a camera club in the first place. Just think for a moment what sort of image you would submit for a set subject of water, or rain, liquid, or wet. In a competition with a set subject of liquid or wet, you will get a number of images entered of seascapes and lakes. Yes, the lake is liquid, but they don't really meet the subject in the way it was intended. So I'm pretty pleased with the images that I have on screen here, but I don't think they meet the subject of liquid or wet. Perhaps this one just might. But out of those two set subjects, I'm not sure this image would be suitable for wet. I think it's more suitable for liquid because we've got the shape, the gentle wave running into the rock pool there. Yes, we know it's liquid, but it doesn't really fit in the spirit of what the competition means. Let's just think of the set subject liquid. And bear in mind, of course, as I said a little while ago, I'm not the font of all knowledge on this. I am quite able to get this badly wrong, the same as anyone else. But I'm going to suggest that this image here would be okay for liquid, because it looks liquid, because of the movement in the image. Let me close this one down. And I think this one for obvious reasons. It certainly looks like liquid, but of course it would also fit the subject of rain. It possibly is one of those images that would also fit water as well. So there are very few images that would actually fit water, rain, liquid and wet, but we would normally think of all of those terms as being very similar. This one I think is firmly in the liquid camp, even though we could possibly say, well, it would fit water, but it is a picture of a seal, but it does look very liquid as the water is flowing over the smooth skin of the seal. Now perhaps I can suggest the next three examples would fit the set subject of wet, and probably water too, but not rain or liquid. And that's this one, for obvious reasons. This one, which is the bird which has obviously been in a downpour, and although it's been in the rain, it's certainly not raining at the moment. So this one is clearly wet, but wouldn't be correct for water. But we do know it's water that makes it wet, but you can see the point I'm making here. And this one here, I think we could say that this is wet, and we could also say it's water, and possibly we could get away with rain as well. If the set subject is an easier subject for you to meet, then think of the first two examples of that set subject and then discard them. Your image needs to have something that makes it stand out from the crowd, because many authors are going to do the obvious. They're going to think of the first thing and they're going to take a photo of it and put it in the competition. So to improve your chances and make the competition better all round, all you have to do is to just think a little bit longer and come up with a subject that's a little bit different. Take the subject of texture. In a recent competition there were 4 images of tree bark. None of them were that inspiring, I have to say, but the author's mistake here was to choose such an obvious subject. So not only was the subject obvious, but straight away they're competing with 3 other people who photographed the very first thing that come into their mind. It's not just the subject you have to meet. You also have to demonstrate some creative thought to find a better subject. The whole point of set subjects is to try to take us as photographers away from our comfort zone, to make us stop and think, and to come up with something a little different. Now, in the modern world it can be a little bit difficult to come up with something that hasn't been done before, but we can at least have a go. But with set subjects, if we just take a step back and think about those most obvious subjects and discard them, and try to use our 4th and 5th ideas rather than the 1st and 2nd, I think we're going to be a little more stimulated in taking the pictures, a little more interested in what we're doing, and hopefully more successful when we present the image.